The Coachella Valley monthly update that you've been waiting for. You have, trust me. Actually, it's kind of interesting. So I'm going to share with you some information. So what I like to do, just FYI, is when I do these, I'm going to start by doing my own numbers. And how I do that is I get on and I look at our whole Desert Cities area. You can see it right here in the map, Palm Springs and even up into Desert Hot Springs and Coachella. That's our area. Then I look at everything that's sold in the last month, everything that's currently active, everything that is under contract. And this is the report that I use, that I take all of that information and I move it over this report. So this is going to tell me what's going on and how things have been changing by looking at what's going on today. And then I'm going to use the report that the multiple listing service provides as well. And then I'm going to look at that one because it's about a month back. So then I can kind of see both in perspective, right? So right now, what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at and as only single family. If you're interested in condos, though, let me know in the comments below, or you can always send me a message because if you're looking at condos, I'd be more than happy to do a video that really just focuses on condos. But they're really quite different, though, the single family versus condos. So I like to compare apples to apples, right? So what we have here is we have the detached single family homes. So look at, in last August, we had 1,981 on the market, and now we have quite a bit more. Now, that's actually kind of to be expected because, quite frankly, the 2544 makes more sense now than it would be in August because in July, August, those numbers are going to go down a little bit because it's summertime year. It's just right in the middle of that, and nobody's really looking at houses when it's 113 degrees outside. So there you go. And then we start to see that those numbers move up. Plus, we've also had a increase in buyers. So I think there's some sellers over the last couple of weeks, and that does have to do, I believe, with the Fed reducing the rate. But here's the thing. If you were paying attention and watching all these things like us data nerds are, you would see that the Fed raised the rate and then they lowered the rate, I'm sorry, and then the mortgage rate went up slightly because it was at record lows for the year earlier than that. Because here's what happens. The market basically knows what the Fed is going to do. They give a lot of indicators, they raise a lot of flags, they kind of, hey, here's where we're going, and the market will bake in that knowledge. Now, if the Fed were to do something like, oh, all of a sudden everybody's expecting them to drop the quarter point, but then they don't, right? They went, 25 basis points down, but all of a sudden they don't. They're like, you know what? No, all this, everything's changed. We're just going to keep it as it is. That would have put things into a bit of a turmoil, but it really didn't. So in fact, a lot of people thought that they were maybe going to even come down a little bit more dramatically. So the mortgage rates will typically go up or down in anticipation of what the Fed's going to do because the market knows, and it follows the 10-year Treasury yield. Okay. So what happened in this case is a couple of weeks before the Fed meeting, the expectation was that they were going to lower the overnight fund rate. They did, but the expectation might have been that a lot of people maybe thought they were going to do a little bit more aggressive, and they didn't. So in anticipation of that move, rates had gone down, and they went down to, I think, 6.13, if I remember correctly, might have been the actual low. And then as soon as they actually did that reduction, they popped up a little bit to 6.3. So just a little bit of an FYI there, but they're still kind of at the lowest, the last 3 weeks or so have been at the lowest rate for the year. So you do see more buyers all of a sudden popping into the market, which is kind of what we expected the closer that you got to 6%. And it'd be great if we could see a 5 in front of that, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but maybe it could potentially. In fact, if you start to look and say, oh, the Fed might reduce again, I think November, I think is the next meeting. And then you might actually see the numbers go down a little bit again. Maybe still not to see a 5 in front of that, but who knows? But anyway, so when that happens, a lot of the sellers are starting to see, oh, there's some more, there's some more activity. If you've been thinking about buying or selling and you've been actively paying attention to all this, you're going to be paying attention. You're going to know that these things are happening, right? So anyway, so a lot of people came back on. So now, but we're also just our natural progression of going from summer to fall, we would normally see a few more homes on the market. Most homes go on the market around January here. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. A lot of places, spring is the bigger market, but here it's more about January, February. And when I was in markets where the springtime, March and April were the better times to sell, I would tell people get ahead of that a little bit. If you list in February, you are going to do better because you're going to be that seller on the market. And there's still lots of buyers out there looking, and you're going to have less competition because everybody else is going to come on in March and April. Well, here, January and February are those numbers. And sometimes I really like to see people come on the first full business day or the first full business weekend of the year. So, whatever January date that is. But anyway, so back to this. So we're going to look at months of inventory. Months of inventory is how many months it would take to sell the amount of homes that are currently under contract, because that's the best indicator, divided by how many more are active or coming soon. So if you take that number right now, we're looking at 3.89 months of inventory. What does that mean? 0 to 3 is generally considered a seller's market. 3 months to 6 months is generally considered a balanced market. And then 6 months plus is generally considered a buyer's market. Okay. So if we're in 3.89, we're kind of just barely over into that seller's market. Okay. We're not like, we're balanced. We're more weighted towards the sellers a little bit. So it's like balance, but favoring sellers just a little bit. We went up a little bit on days on market right here. So we went up from early August from 70 to 72. I mean, honestly, these small little changes like this they're so nominal. It's just like one particular home didn't price low enough, whatever. So that's what we're looking at there. So that's of the market. And part 3 of the market update. So here's where we're going to sort of pull it all together. So you've seen right now. So now what I just showed you was more of a today look. And this is more of a what happened last month look. So it's September 27th today. And I'm looking at the August numbers. And the reason I do that is because I like to send this out at the beginning of the month. So I'm not going to be able to, always have, I usually do the 2 months back, but that's why I also did the today numbers. So we can kind of see where things are moving, but let's see where we have just recently been. So I find this interesting. So the listing under contract, this is a pretty big deal. So we went in 2024, right here, okay? We went from 340 listings under contract at the same time as now in August to 2025, 506. Well, that's a pretty big jump, okay? So and that's a 48% jump. I mean, that's huge. If you look at the previous month, we even went up from July. So from July to August, we even went up a little bit. So the homes are selling. And here's why I think about that. Excuse me. So, now, when I'm looking at these numbers, what I'm seeing is that I think that the sellers are starting to get the numbers right. Okay. I think last year it was still challenging. And even at the beginning of this year, there was a lot of chaos at the beginning of this year, trying to figure out where things were going. So if you recall, are we doing tariffs? Are we doing I can't remember what it's called, but where they were, kind of eliminating government jobs and the Doge thing. A lot of that has had people kind of going, oh, what's happening, right? I mean, right, left, or center, most people were just sort of like, okay, whether it's good or bad or whatever, we're just like, but where's it going to go? Where's this going to take us, right? So there was a lot of like holding back, didn't want to do anything. So now I feel like we're a little more baked in, okay? We're starting to see, and like I was just talking about with the rates, we're starting to see the rates loosen up a little bit, go down a little bit. It's giving people more buying power. It's also, I think, getting people used to the fact that the rates are not going to go back down to 3%. I mean, someday, maybe, I mean, probably sometime, depending on how old you are in your lifetime, you'll see 3% again. But it's relatively unlikely. And a lot of the rates that were happening, even earlier, like 2021, 22, was COVID related. They were trying to spur on, the economy, trying to keep things going because of all the lockdowns, right? So that was affecting the rates. Well, outside of something catastrophic happening, so we kind of don't want that, right? It's like when you see the rates get really low and gas get really low, like way lower than what you would think, it usually means something bad is happening. And so I don't know that we want that necessarily, right? But anyway, but right now I think people are just getting used to the idea that these are the rates, and they are still generally lower than the average rates were before. And also what's happened is we haven't seen prices increase, and we also haven't seen prices decrease. They stayed pretty within a few, percentage points up and down, right? At least here and in a lot of parts of the country. Some parts of the country have gone down a lot. So think Florida, think Texas, think some overbuilding situations with builders. It's easy to build in those states. It's easier to build here too, but it's way easier to build in Texas, Phoenix, Florida. They don't have quite as much regulation. Again, the better and different, it's going to be a lot easier for builders to build. And so that's where they tend to do that, but then they might oversaturate the market. So you might see a little bit more inventory in those areas, which is maybe undervaluing the property. Whereas in California, we're kind of in the middle, but like the Northeast, they have more regulation, less land to build on. That's the other phase. Some states have way more land. But up in, especially like Phoenix, Las Vegas, even our area, the deserts, we just got all these acres of land. But then in the Northeast, they've got a lot smaller amount and more regulation. And that means their inventory is lower and they're still more of the seller's market, right? So our market in Coachella Valley, we're kind of right in the middle. So what we've seen is, and I know they just did a news story, actually, it was quite interesting because somebody told me about it because my listing was on it. In fact, they were doing an interview in the driveway of my listing and my sign was there, which was cool. Always like the free press. But but they were talking about the fact that, hey, buyers are coming out because they have a little bit more power. And you still do right now. There's a lot of sellers who are still selling or sitting on the market longer. They're not selling quite as quickly. But as we see those rates, if you see the rates go down and the inventory go down like we're looking at here, you're gonna see sellers having a little bit easier time. But right now, you do still have a little more negotiation power as a buyer. So for instance, if you look at 2024, and don't really look at the previous month because one month to the next, I mean, that could just be one or two one-off houses, right? There was one particularly expensive house last month, and there's a more particularly inexpensive house this month, and just a couple of them, and it just throws it off. But year over year is way more interesting. So if you look at the price of the home year over year in 2024, it was $625. In 2025, it's $620. Okay, that's not a big drop. It's less than 1%. But the news story was like, well, prices of homes have come down. Yeah, a little bit. But here's the other interesting factor. Price per square foot has gone up, right? That's really a better indication. How much money are people paying per square foot for the house? That's gone up. And it's gone up over 1%, right? So yeah, the median price might have come down just a little bit, but right, the price per square foot went up, $5 a square foot. So that, I thought that was very interesting. And 96.2% versus 96.1%, that's the sale to list price ratio. So the seller listed it here. What did they get for that house? And, back in the day, we saw a lot of 101%, right? Because people bid up the price of the house. And now 96%, that's pretty average. That's, again, if you look here, balanced. We talked about that in the last, my little chart that I do, the 3.89 months of inventory. That's a balanced market, slightly tilted towards sellers, but it's balanced. And that actually makes a lot of sense because I've been doing this for 26 years and I've seen a lot of markets. And the balanced markets will typically have about that much. So that's why you also don't want to price it too high, because when you're pricing, I know everybody thinks, yeah, well, we can always come down. But if you price it too high, you're probably going to have to come down, and then people are still going to come down, especially if you've been on the market for a while. So if you price it too high, you sat on the market for 90 days, then you decided to do a price reduction, then that price reduction, the buyers, they don't care. They're just like, okay, well, now it's price good for me to look at it. But how long have they been on the market? They will ask me, and I would say, oh, they've been on the market for 90 days. And then they say, oh, well, I think you could probably get away with even less. So you're coming down and they're coming down even more. Whereas if you price it right in the beginning and a buyer walks into your home and they go, and they've seen, they're almost more up on the inventory instead of the agents a lot of times, because they've just seen everything. And they're like, oh, so let me think. So it's just been on the market for one day. Yeah, well, this price is good. This is the best house I've seen for this price. We better get on it, right? And that's the thought process. In fact, if anything, and I support this, maybe we need to go up a little bit, and that would actually make sense for people to do. So just a little side note there, when you're thinking about pricing your home, because maybe you'd like to get 100% of the price that you're asking, and you'd rather not get the 96.2%. And I would say actually in a real balanced market too, you might even see it's closer to 98%. Now, why isn't it 70% or 60% or whatever? It's because they just don't, the homes just don't tend to sell until they've gotten to the price they need to be at. You know, everyone's like, well, people can make an offer. Yeah, but they don't. They don't even go look. If your house is dramatically priced, if they're, most of the time people are not going to lowball. People are comfortable with that, generally speaking. Some people aren't, but a lot of people are. Anyway, something to keep in mind. Okay, let's look at the new listings. Again, here we're seeing interesting little indicators, right? So we had 704 in August of 2024. Ugh, couldn't get that F. And then we had 623 in 2025 in August. So that's new listings, okay? But when under contract, a lot of them. Okay, so those are the flags we're seeing, okay? So there's not as many new listings. So that's number one. Price per square foot has gone up. Number two, when under contract. Number three, all of those trending in a seller's favor. So it's, again, something to keep in mind, buyers. They haven't quite got there yet. We're already starting to see all the signs that we could be going back into a little bit more of a seller's market. Are we going to go to 2022, 21? We have 20 offers on every house. Likely not. But I've still seen multiple offers on properties that are priced correctly. So that would be something to keep in mind. If you are in the market at all, it would be a really good idea to get in with your lender. And I've got lenders. In fact, all of my YouTube videos, I have some of my favorite lenders are listed below, and you can find them in the description. You see the ... more button, right? You see, come down, look at the full description, and you'll find them down there. And you have all of my contact information. If you ever wanted to get on a Zoom with me, you want to talk about either how much your home is worth here in the desert cities, or if you need an agent in another area, I'm happy to give you referrals, because I have great networks of agents across the country, and some of my big networking groups that I'm part of. And then also, if you're just interested in buying here, we can get on a Zoom. I can, more than happy, just even if you're just curious about it, go ahead and schedule a Zoom with me. I don't bite, I promise. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you had. I'm happy to go do video tours for people too. If you're just like, I'm kind of interested in, let's say, Trilogy and La Quinta. And I'd love to kind of, I can't make it there, but I'd love to see a little bit more about what that's like. Now, I do videos like that, but if there's something that I haven't done and you'd like to see it, let me know. And I'm happy to do it, because I'm wanting to give you guys what you want as far as what you're interested in, and bring you the value looking for homes in Palm Springs, Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Rancho Mirage, Indian Wells, Palm Desert, and India, Coachella, La Quinta. You get the idea. I don't think I left anything out. So those are the 9 desert cities. But if you want to have any questions or want to get on a Zoom and ask any questions or call me, all that information is below as well. And I'm also happy to provide this information. And also below you will find it says Stan Store link, Stan Store at Palm Springs Homes. That has a lot of fun little things. For instance, so we're talking about what your home values here, right? If you're thinking of putting your home on the market anytime, literally in the next year, I have a great list of things that you can do to get the most value so that you can be one of these higher priced homes and get the most value out of your home. And it's a checklist that, trust me, is my husband and I have lived in this house for 5 years, 5.5 years. It's just packed with stuff. I mean, if we wanted to sell it, and we need to start now. If we want to sell it this time next year, we need to start clearing stuff out, all the things. But the checklist kind of gives you a really good idea of what you should be doing specifically. And if you take that checklist, which is totally free, and you can just start ticking those things off, and just one weekend we're going to do this, and the next weekend we're going to do that, I think you will like it. So anyway, hope that helped. Hope this is helping you live your best desert life. And if you have any questions again about anything, feel free to contact me. And I would like to say too, and I know this is, everybody says this in YouTube or whatever, but it really is true. If you like and subscribe, or especially if you just like the video, it would really be very helpful if you find this uh, information valuable. This will help my video, it might help my channel rather, and it will also help you if you subscribe to see more stuff about the living in Palm Springs lifestyle that I focus on in this channel. So have a great day. Thanks for watching. Come back and see me on my next video.